This video contains a paid promotion. Let's make a knife with the Aufero Laser 1. First, we're going to test it out on different knife making materials and then even on a blade itself. We'll be using the 20 watt input, 5.5 watt output short focus module. There are two other heads available for the Laser 1 unit, and this is not them. This thing is about as plug and play as it gets. The frame comes pre-assembled and you literally just plug the power cable from the frame into the laser module and attach it, and then you're good to go. Here's the magnetic screen that goes on the bottom. It's very cool. Next, you attach a power cable from your wall to the unit, obviously, and then a USB printer cable to your computer, and it's ready. It needs no drivers. It comes with this focusing card you position snugly between your medium and the laser to properly focus everything. And it comes with safety glasses to keep your retinas from melting. The assembled unit is super lightweight, but the real draw is its resemblance to the Klingon bird of prey.
Klingons on attack course and closing.
She's a sexy beast. Up and running in about a minute and a half. I don't think it gets simpler for this type of thing. It's got something going for it there. You can use two softwares, Laser GRBL or Lightburn, to run the machine. Laser GRBL is free and simple, and I used it for everything seen in this video. Speaking of seen in this video, I made this platform for my spaceship laser beam using the included brackets and screws. I built this flat plexiglass sheet for engraving, and then I never really used it more than about once. I cut a notch in the wooden base, seen here, thinking that I would jig up a knife vertically for lasering the spine, and I would clamp it 90 degrees under here, right there. You know, but I quickly figured out the mounting bracket on the laser module can be moved up and down. So you can actually raise the module high enough on the frame to accommodate the spine of most knives without cutting out a notch in the base. Oh well. So next we're going to try to etch and cut various knife making materials. Aufero offers this PDF guide on their website. It's sort of useful, but it looks like just a jumping off point to me. It didn't really work all that well. So you're going to have to do a little testing is what I'm saying on your materials to optimize the settings for the results you're looking for. So steel, it does okay, as you can see. Copper doesn't really do anything. Even if you color the copper like you have to glass, it leaves a small mark, but not much. I got in touch with the company and they actually said, look, it's not for copper and brass. They're coming out with a different laser for that. Here's leather, and you may ask, why is he doing that outside? Well, let me show you the calculus. So as for etching leather, it did a pretty good job with this jar of pickles. Cutting leather, you know, if you tinker with the settings a little bit, you can actually get pretty good results cutting this 8-ounce leather. It's not bad. Well, what about wood? There's only one question when it comes to wood, my friends. Are you in Clan Kardashian? Or are you on Team McDream? I'm a McDreamer. Hey, no need to apologize, Steve. Engraving wood does great. What about cutting wood? I also did a pretty good job. I did this 1.8 millimeter very cleanly. With a little testing, we got it through this 3 millimeter wood looking pretty nice. Here you can see how much of a difference the settings make. This was one pass on 100 millimeters per second. 100% power, and it burned everything. So that laser just sat in one spot for too long, moving slow. And then here's 400 millimeters per second with 4 passes. And the laser just never stood still long enough to burn anything very badly, and yet it cut it. So that's probably the setting for 3 millimeter wood that I'll use. That's definitely not what the manufacturer recommends, but works so much better. That's sort of the trick with cutting, is to manage the speed and power of the laser in such a way as to produce as little burning as possible. And you can even manage how many lines per millimeter it draws and all that stuff. But that's the big question. Cutting power versus keeping your material from burning. Can this unit help you engrave on the blade itself? So let's look at the spine first. Remember, we set up the laser in such a way that we can fit a knife underneath it and focus it on the spine. So here we go. Things have to be set up very precisely for this. So I emailed Aufero and asked them how to set up this unit for this type of precision, and they said not to try it. It really wasn't made for that, and I sort of agree it's not, but I'm going to do it anyway. So we'll load it into the free software and give this a go. I tried squaring things up and getting things parallel to the frame of the system, but the frame is plastic and a little bit bendy, and this just did not yield good results. I mean, you can see the writing isn't centered and it's skewed. It's sort of off angle. It's not running parallel to the spine. So instead, I went and laser engraved a grid to the baseboard, and so you know what is exactly running parallel with the laser now. And we got this set up and centered. It still took a little practice, but it worked. Handles. For the handles on our knife, I'm going to use a cutting technique on some maple veneer. I'm going to have 3 layers of thin maple veneer stacked on top of each other. They're all going to be drawn differently, so you'll get a sort of a different effect on looking through the layers. I'm hoping the first 2 layers I've drawn up on my own. The third is some scroll work I found on the internet. I had to alter it half a dozen ways basically to get it to fit the design. I had to change elements in there, make some thin areas thicker, and do some different things with it. At any rate, lasering this out of the maple veneer took more time than I'd like to admit. You have to readjust the settings. Every wood cuts and burns a little differently, and getting that down and then knowing exactly how thin your design can be and all this, this took a while. Now, if I did it again, I could do it much quicker. I've sort of learned those lessons type of thing, you know? So there are some limits to how fine a design you can make. Obviously, these weren't drawn that thin, you know, they just lasered out that thin. These were so thin that they lasered out entirely. There's nothing else there. These just popped right off. I'm gonna have to thicken up these lines here. That's way too fine. This glued on here, I don't know how that happened. Same with here, I'm just gonna have to thicken up some of these lines so that there's some durability. So you can see I put fewer notches up here, but they're thicker, and did the same a little bit here and here. And then I sped up the laser a little bit and took an extra pass, you know, instead of 3 passes, this is 4 passes, a little bit faster. So glue up was trickier than you might think. You don't want to put on too much glue, otherwise it runs out in between all these cracks and crevices, and you can see it and you can't clean it up because it's too tiny in an area you can't reach. And so the goal is just to put on as little glue as possible and just in the areas that contact each other, and you don't want anything squishing out when you press it together. So a little tricky. The old Danish oil. All right, I just etched the knife. It was a lot like this one. We'll look at the results here in a second, but I gotta tell you that was really tricky. The laser has to be in focus. Remember, it has to be this far away from anything at all times for it to focus. If it's out of focus, it just doesn't etch very well. So something that's in focus etches dark, out of focus stuff etches light or not at all. And our blade is not parallel and perpendicular to our handle, which is perfectly flat and would be perpendicular to the laser, bottom of the laser. Remember, our blade is like a several degree bevel from this side to this side, right? So it's sloping away down like that, and it's tapered. So this right here is closer than this right here, which is further away. So when we hook it up on here, we have to do a couple things. We have to rotate it up like this a little bit. So I put some wood back under the handle here, under this grip side of the handle, to bring it up like that. Then we have to put a little piece of wood up here on the tip, just on the tip, to bring it up like that. So it takes a lot of trial and error, and you have to tape everything down. I finally got it to work. We'll see the results in a second. All right, I put everything together. Let's check out the results. So this is my first attempt with this type of thing, and it's basically culminated in a sort of demo knife. You things aren't perfect. The wood was too thin to really properly sand and clean up after I cut it out. I didn't really accommodate for the fasteners well enough in the handle tier design. But all in all, I think the potential here is really apparent. But thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.
Squishy, squishy, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the squishy. I know, you're bad man. Bad man. Squishy. I know.